think you're going
It's a good stretch.
talk to us about basketball.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, listen here, kids.
For those that don't know, I'm PJ.
I'm Danny.
We're the Retrologists, but we have podcast as well as live stream. We work with lots of different conventions. We host and interview cool people, and we do neat events. Does that make sense? That makes sense.
Yeah.
We got to work on that elevator pitch
No,
for the past 10 years.
Interesting people, though.
Yeah.
Like, what makes someone interesting?
Okay, calm down. Yeah. The problem is.
Thank you. Yeah.
The problem is that when all you have is this, it's kind of like Spider-Man. If you're nobody with the suit, you're nobody without the suit, then you're nobody with the suit. Same deal. This beard gets me so far. If I cut it off, just a normal guy like any of you losers, right? So like what? I'm just joking.
The worst part about your beard is that when you do cut it off, people will be like, "Oh, you cut your beard. You cut your beard off." That'll be like the number one thing people will say to you for the rest of your life.
True.
Where's your beard go? Oh, beard.
I feel like you only really do that to like scare your child.
Right.
When their child is
Yeah.
like, they're
It's
so used to seeing you with a certain face.
The opposite of that scene from Teen Wolf when he shows up all hairy to show his son that he's a werewolf too. The opposite of
That's
that.
one of my favorite scenes. Oh, his daddy's. Yeah. If you haven't seen Teen Wolf, you should for that. Just for that scene alone.
It's one of my all-time favorite movie
Amazing.
scenes.
So we're going to be hanging out for the weekend, chatting with really awesome people. We're humbled to be a part of that. This morning, we're chatting with somebody, probably one of the cooler people that we've chatted with.
Real front-loaded lineup.
It kind of is.
Front-loaded.
Front-loaded, big time. Everybody else after this is downhill to the cosplay contest and all the way up again.
It's like a roller coaster.
Who here is familiar with Mark Muir? Nice, hands up. Mark's familiar with himself.
Nice.
And really, isn't that therapeutic? Is to really know thyself. And he knows himself. I love that. Yell out how you would know him. There we go, baby. Mass Effect. We'll get into Mass Effect in particular because I've got a personal connection to that. But you got anything to say, Danny? Why am I breathing so hard? Nice.
I'm gonna get on stage. We're good.
Let's. He's trying to. Oh, the officialness. I love this.
Is he gonna blast out?
He's gonna have a big Johnny Carson moment. Everybody, the amazing Mark Muir. Woo!
You might remember me from that seat a few moments ago. Hello, good to see you. Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Muir, and hello.
Welcome.
Good to see you again.
Yeah.
It feels like an age since we last saw each other on this very stage.
It's been at least minutes.
I was over there the last time, though.
Yes, and
So
thank
it
you for
feels
coming,
good.
everyone. You should know that over 10,000 people applied to see this panel, and you're our lucky winners, so congratulations. Good to see you all.
Glad you
Oh,
brought
here.
your tickets.
I left my coat just draped on the stage. I'll put it on the
Casual.
back of my chair. It'll be set dressing.
You got the official coat.
Yep.
It is.
How do people get that coat?
You go back in time.
Oh man.
I'm afraid. Yeah, this was the original release, the official BioWare release, and I didn't actually get a free one from BioWare. Wow. This was actually a gift from a fan who basically, said, "I'm buying the coat," and I said, "Oh yeah, it looks great." And they said, "Do you have one?" And I went, "No." And then they sent me one.
I feel like that's the case when people see their pop figures for the first time when they're getting autographs, maybe even. Like, I'm signing this, and I don't even have one.
I do have one. I should have bought a crate of those things when they came out because, I'm kicking myself for not doing it. I even thought, it's like, maybe I should get a few more. It's like, the one will be fine. I even opened it and put it on my desk.
Yeah. Broke the rule.
Horrible.
I open all my toys, though. I open all my toys.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have to open them. It seems strange otherwise.
I make it better for the other collectors because I make their things more rare.
Well played. But also, you should just buy two of everything.
One
to
do that
open,
on
one to
occasion.
enjoy.
On occasion, I do have. So I've, when the first Commander Shepard action figure came out, I think DC Direct did it. I can't remember, but I of course bought one, and I, because I was a nerd, and I got an action figure of a character I played. But I did buy a couple in the bubbles. Kept them in the package. They're hanging on the wall. And I've got the open one on my shelf. But the Pops is really, I missed the boat on that. I only have the one Pop, and he's out of package.
Only one. We don't have any Mark.
I'm sorry.
Come on.
Sorry.
You only have one Oscar.
I
You only
mean,
got
I've
one.
signed a few in my time.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Have you been part of many other conventions recently?
Oh, yeah, actually, this year was a busy convention season for me because I was doing a thing with a group called the D20 Avengers, and so that was a bunch of voice actors from Apex Legends and some of the Baldur's Gate 3 folks, and we were basically playing Dungeons & Dragons at a variety of conventions. We did Calgary Expo, we did Anime Central, yes, that's right. And a few others here and there, and I saw a bunch of them at Gen Con, and yeah, so that added to my usual schedule, because I always do, for example, Northern Fan Con right here in British Columbia. I always do Dragon Con down in Atlanta. That's probably, I'll have to say it, it's I hate to say this at another convention, but Dragon Con is my favorite convention. It's an amazing experience, and I was going as a fan like since the '98, I think. So that's one of my favorite conventions, and then I got to be a guest at it. And Gen Con I also do every year because I've also been into role-playing games long before I was an actor. So I went to my first Gen Con in '87, I think.
I was literally going to say that, is that you're a big nerd as well, though.
Yes.
And a lot of voice actors that we've spoken to typically stay in their lane, that they're voice actors and they can speak very heavily about that. But you're a big nerd outside of that.
Yeah, well, I got into acting through improv, and improv, the old Venn diagram joke, the nerds and improvisers, it's a circle. It's just, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah.
There's, in any improv troupe, you're going to find at least one or two D&D games going on. So I was no exception. So for a long time, especially when I was touring, and it was very hard to have a regular D&D game, I'd just drop in on whatever improv troupe or company that I happened to be performing with. I'd say, anybody running a game while I'm in town? And drop in on that. And then subsequently, let's see, I think what kicked it off was D&D Live in 2018, and I got brought to that by Beamdog because I did a bunch of voices for the Baldur's Gate Enhanced editions, and I did some of their tutorials and things like that. So they brought me down to LA for D&D Live, and this was when Wizards of the Coast was really splashing out a lot of money for these events.
Right.
So they took a whole soundstage in Los Angeles and turned it into Waterdeep, essentially, like a city square in Waterdeep, including like a giant, one of the walking statues' feet coming through the ceiling, and they had the Yawning Portal Tavern in one end of the city square. They had like a blacksmith and like an orc butcher with like flies all over the meat, and all these little stores that you could go into. And my gig at that was basically to sit in the Yawning Portal dressed as a wizard, sitting at a table with Ed Greenwood, the guy who created the Forgotten Realms, and he's dressed as Alminster, one of his most famous creations, and I'm drinking real beer. So it was a pretty great gig.
That's a highlight.
Yeah.
Yes.
And not only that, from that gig, that's where I met like all the D&D in a Castle people. I met B. Dave Walters. I met, I think, Becca Scott that weekend. Lots of the people that I ended up doing actual plays with. That one event is where I made all these connections, and then met them again at Gen Con, and that's why I started doing D&D in a Castle. So
I think that's the key thing, is that companies back then had larger marketing dollars to be able to make spectacles out of things.
Yes, I think so.
And that dynamic has changed immensely, you feel?
I think, everything changed, obviously. It's like, that's now, 7 years ago? So yeah, things changed in that course of time. But I'm glad I got to go to it when they were still splashing out all that money, because it was a very impressive. It was so immersive. It was just, I was one of the people who was acting in it, and I was still like, this is cool. This is so, yeah.
Right, you're trying to play it cool. You're like, oh, stay in character.
Oh no, I was
Yeah.
like, just like, and everybody that was involved with that weekend was just like nerding out from inside the event. So yeah, very fun.
Fans meeting fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the weekend that I finally face-to-face met Matt Mercer. Like, we'd been hearing about you, it was like, we finally meet after all this time. And great guy. Again, met several of the Critical Role folks, and all in all, it was just a great event, which led to more great events.
I think whenever I see photos, even Instagram posts of, it could be voice actors all in the same room that have never met each other, over time of production, or
I mean-
actors that are suddenly come together? Like it could be the Hobbits, like seeing all four of those guys together. Like
Yep.
seeing groups of people together is
That
is
was
pretty cool now, right?
That was really the case especially because I was recording most of my Mass Effect stuff in Canada. I did a couple of sessions in Los Angeles and a couple in London, but just because I happened to be in those cities when they needed stuff.
Right.
But the bulk of my stuff was all done in Edmonton, where BioWare is based. And even all the actors that were in LA together, like Trisha Helfer and Seth Green, they have a lot of scenes together, like as Joker and Edie, but they never recorded their stuff together. Sometimes they'd bump into each other, leaving or coming to the studio. But there were so many people that I had never. I'd done like some Zoom calls or Skype or whatever we would have been using back in the day. But it was conventions where the first time I met Jennifer Hale, the first time I met most of the cast. The only person that I actually met during the recording process was, funnily enough, Martin Sheen, like the most famous person. And that again happened to be I was in LA with my wife, and it was around. Our anniversary is Halloween, so we'd sort of gone down for Halloween, and we basically got contacted and told, my director was just like, I know you're in town, Martin Sheen is recording his final scene as the Elusive Man, you want to come in and meet him to the studio? I was like, of course.
Yeah,
And
absolutely, yeah.
Jennifer Hale lived in LA at the time too, so both of us got to go meet Martin Sheen and watch him do, basically, it was a very, very lush, high-end LA recording studio. So he's in the booth. We're watching him through glass. We're sitting on like nice couches, and like people are bringing us snacks while we're watching him. And so it was a great experience. And he was amazing. He was just so gracious, very, very nice. And he was goofing around too. Like in the Elusive Man's death scene, in the middle of it, as he's doing the death scene, he suddenly stops and puts his hand on the glass, and he's like, "The horror, the horror." And it's, he's making an Apocalypse Now reference. It's not even his line. That was Brando's line. But yeah, it was very funny.
So how did you get? A lot of your work is with BioWare. How did that connection happen? Just because of your being a local guy, or?
I mean, the very first voice work that I did for BioWare was for Baldur's Gate 2.
Okay.
This was back in the late 90s. And essentially at that point, BioWare had put out, before the Baldur's Gate games, they put out a game called MDK2, which was, I think, their very first product. And all the voices in that were provided by friends of mine. They were like two comedy troupes, Three Dead Trolls in a Baggie and Atomic Improv. And they basically got hired to do all the voices in that whole game. And I've heard about that. It's like, holy shit, there's a video game company in holy crow, there's a video game company in town.
Holy guacamole, yeah.
Guacamole. So I hadn't known. It was like, oh, yeah, if there's any auditions, let me know. And I didn't have to wait too long before they put out what they used to call a big cattle call audition, where it was like, every actor in town, show up at the studio, lay down some voices, and then we'll get back to you. So I did that like everybody else. What I put down got me a single line in the final cutscene of Baldur's Gate 2. I was one of the, if you've ever played the game, at the end there's basically like
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Okay, spoilers for this game that came out 27 years ago. There's a bunch of evil ball-worshipping clerics who are basically doing, I'll get you next time, Gadget. Like, my line was, what was it? There is no need for concern. The fate of this fool is sealed. Something, and it was just like a little back and forth between the evil guys. And for that, so that one line, you had to play the whole 40-hour game just to see it, because it was the last cutscene. But that was apparently enough for BioWare to just keep hiring me, because I was in pretty much everything they did after that. So being local, I think, did help. Also, what I think helped, I don't have confirmation of this, but I was a D&D player. So they didn't have to waste time explaining anything to me. Like, they could literally just put me in the booth like, this guy is a kobold shaman, and I wouldn't be like, what's a kobold? What's a shaman? I'd be, he's lawful evil. And I know the name of the god he worships, Kurtlemek. And, so that sort of shorthand, I like to think, helped me. Also, I was even more local than you think, because like my house used to be a 10-minute walk from the studio when they had their first original studio on White Avenue in the old startup days. So I did, as I say, Baldur's Gate 2. I did all the DLC for that, like Throne of Baal, and I did Kingmaker. I did Neverwinter Nights. Jade Empire. Yeah. Did the original Neverwinter Nights, the Bioware did. And then Kingmaker, Jade Empire when it came out, because that was their first sort of original IP, when they started moving away from the Dungeons and Dragons games. And did the original Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But here's the thing, I'm not actually in the game. I did what they call scratch work or
I
demo
take it
work.
back.
Because they had, a bunch of Edmonton actors doing all this in the process, like, right from scratch, from the development of the game. But we were told, it's like, yeah, we really like you guys' stuff, but Lucasfilm has specifically stipulated that we can only use actors from LA. And so I was in,
Eastern Union in particular.
yeah, in the demo stage, I was Karth Onasi, who was one of the main NPCs. He was sort of like the smuggler rogue type, the Han Solo type of that game. And so I did all of Karth's stuff, and basically somebody else redid it. The person who redid it, who was actually in the game, was Raphael Sabarge, who plays Caden in Mass Effect. I made this joke the very first time I met Raphael when we were on a panel together at DragonCon. It's like, yeah, that's why I killed Caden on Vermeer.
Nice icebreaker.
Yeah. No, but I did kill Caden though. That's my renegade was dating Ashley. I wasn't going to kill her, so not only Caden. I thought there's no way, especially with this stipulation, there's no way that I'm actually going to get to be in the game as this main character. But I held out hope that, because I did a bunch of Imperial officers, and it's like, well, surely they'll let me stick around in these bit parts, and they're like, nah, I'm afraid they're. And here's the thing. I actually knew that, yeah, all Imperial officers should have a British accent. And I did that, and the BioWare was happy with it. But they said, no, we have to replace it. And then the guy that they got to replace it couldn't do a British accent.
I was going to say,
yeah.
did they copy you in that case? No.
No, they just did like a California accent, and it was just like, come on, you guys, come on.
Amateurs. Lucas, figure it out. I think in the very, very end, though, you're talking about all the things you've done and the happenstances in which you're able to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, people liked being in a room with you for extended amount of time. And there's something to be said about that character. Like, be a nice guy, be courteous, and be nice to the people you're with, and they want to be in a booth with you for a long time.
Oh, I was never
Has that
nice to them.
resonated with
I was
you?
not nice to them. No, I'm joking, of course. Well, I try to be. And yeah, it was always like a fun work environment. And so again, subsequently, I did stuff beyond Knights of the Old Republic. And so their first foray was Jade Empire into their own IP. The second was basically Mass Effect. And because I'd been working with them for so long, I was brought in right at the ground floor on that project. Before anything had really been written in terms of scenes, I was brought in to develop what various alien races would sound like. I was essentially going to do a presentation with the devs. They gave me, they sort of hired me as a consultant. Gave me a huge Bible of like, here's all the information on the various alien races. Here's background on their culture. Here's what they look like, and we want you to come up with what a typical member of, say, the Solarian species sound like. What does a Krogan sound like? And some stuff was very obvious, like, well, the Krogan should probably have a deep, gruff voice because they're big guys. But I do take credit for why the Solarians all basically have like the Steve Buscemi cadence, that sort of clipped. In fact, the first Solarian I played was a Solarian bartender, and I was basically just doing a Steve Buscemi impression.
I didn't put that together, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And some stuff they took, like the Volus should, it's not rocket science. It was like they wear this breathing apparatus, so I'll give them this sort of like wheeze, in the middle of sentences and at the end of sentences. And some stuff they didn't take because my suggestion for Turians, just because of their mouth structure and thought, I was like, it might be interesting if they have like a little click, like at the end of, their sentence, or they make this clicking noise when they talk. And they were going with that for a while before Garrus was introduced as a main character. And they're like, Garrus talks a lot, so that's going to get old really fast.
Oh,
so
good point.
Instead, they decided Turians will just have a filter on them. But during that process of, coming up with what all the aliens sound like, they asked me to audition for Shepard, and I was like, okay, sure, why not? I will never get it. It'll obviously go to somebody from LA, like my coveted Knights of the Old Republic role. But I, just kept going through the process, and it's like, oh, you got a callback, oh, you got a second callback, and then, I'm still going in every day and doing stuff on Aliens, and then I was told it's down to you and 2 other guys from LA. It's like, well, one of them will get it. I'll do a bunch of Aliens. And the next time I went in, it was like, you're it. You're going to be the lead, along with Jennifer Hale, who's one of the most prolific voice actors in the world, and amazing, by the way. And I was a fan of Jennifer's mostly from her animation work, because I was a big Justice League fan, and she was like the go-to Zatanna, and she was Giganta and Killer Frost and a bunch of other characters in that. And of course, in Knights of the Old Republic, she was Bastila. So I certainly knew Jennifer's work, and I knew that she and Steve Bloom literally had the Guinness Book of World Records record for most voice roles, so that was amazing, and I got to be a bunch of aliens besides. So it really worked out for me.
Huge paycheck.
I got a question for you there. I think it's interesting, like the audition process for Shepard. Like, I'm trying to formulate my words here without being offensive. The voice style of Shepard, like, because his part of the story is the surrogate for the audience. Like, the way you played him, how did that affect the mannerisms, the way he speaks? Because, like, I feel like your style of voicing that character was, like, you're not garish or crazy. You're very middle of the road.
That's the thing.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to mean that in an offensive way. I think that was very intentional.
Well, no, that was specifically how I was directed.
So how do you audition for that?
Well, I basically, my voice is not that far off Commander Shepard is basically me trying to sound tough.
Okay.
So, as opposed to what I had been doing up to that point, which tended to be monsters and aliens and sort of more extreme voices. And this, they wanted essentially an everyman kind of voice. This was kind of groundbreaking because it was the first time you had a fully voiced protagonist. Up till that point, it was always blocks of text. And it would just be the NPCs would talk, and then you'd spend some time reading, pick which one you want, and then you'd see a block of text, and then they'd talk. So they really wanted a performance that people could project themselves into.
Okay.
So nothing too extreme either way, even in terms of, especially because you had the morality choice, you had like Paragon Renegade, that dynamic. So when we were recording, we actually had to go back and do some stuff again, because we would usually record, okay, we'll do the Paragon path, and now we'll do the Renegade path, and some of the lines, and then there'll be some neutral lines that are shared between those 2 reads. But they discovered that if you put a little too much pepper on the performance, oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I had left my water. If you go too far into it, not everybody, if somebody's playing, they're not necessarily going to go pure Renegade or pure Paragon. Most people are going to pick a mix of both. So if you go too extreme with either way, and usually in the Renegade going into anger, it sounds like you're having these wild mood swings.
Sure. That's a good point. Yeah.
So if there was any any note I ever got was like, okay, that's a great performance, but we're going to have to flatten it out, or else it's going to clash too much with the other thing. So that was, there was a learning curve to that, and that was a fine line to ride.
Yeah.
And of course, like you're saying, there's a lot of character agency in terms of, Shepard's background, what kind of person they are. Did they grow up in a street gang? Did they grow up as like the son or daughter of an admiral? Like, there's so much variation, and no Shepard is actually canon per se.
Sure.
So everybody's Shepard is equally valid. So you have to really find that sweet spot that could be applied to any of this wide range of characters, ranging from the pure Paragon Boy Scout Shepard essentially to the borderline sociopath renegade, who's still saving the galaxy, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
But just being very rude about it and violent. So yeah.
I love that. It's really interesting to me that like you're being told to tame it, whereas like sometimes an actor you're trying to find like a very specific like spot you're reaching, right?
And that actually, as we went through the trilogy, that loosened up. So by the 3rd game, and it makes sense narratively as well, because Shepard has been through quite a bit by the time you get to that, literally having been killed and resurrected, and like seeing a lot of death, and now Earth is under attack and all these planets being destroyed. So they said, okay, so it makes sense for the strain of that to be showing, and so we can show a little more emotion on both ends of the spectrum.
That's really interesting. That's cool. have you played the games?
Yes.
Do you like the classic? Is it the classic? Like, do you feel uncomfortable hearing your own voice, or do you choose Jennifer's parts? Or
I mean, of course, years ago, of course, that was the case. Like everybody, when you hear your own voice, but having done sketch comedy and having to edit stuff that I'm in and and give notes. Well, I wasn't doing the editing, but I was giving notes and okay, having to listen to yourself so much, it eventually you just get used to it. But I wasn't gonna, I'm a big nerd, so I wasn't gonna play a video game that I'm in and not play me and listen to my own voice. And
congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah, and it was, of course, also reviewing my work. I wanted to see before, play each game through before we got to the next one, which is why I haven't done a complete playthrough of 3 yet. The other reason is because I was playing it quite a bit, and I got about, I don't know, 9 or 10 hours in, but I was playing at BioWare before release, and so when I got my copy, it's I don't have those save files.
Restart.
Yeah, and so that, what's 10 hours when you're a video game player? But I also didn't have the impetus of I got to watch this before we do the next one. So I know I've watched innumerable vids of other people playing and things like that. So I've seen all the scenes essentially from 3.
Especially when people speed run it and just skip your dialogue.
Skip the
Mass Effect fans don't tend to do that. They when people they're no, we want to see the whole story. We want to see, because Mass Effect is so much about the NPC interactions. Maybe not even the plot details as much, but it's definitely all the relationship stuff. If it's in there, people tend to dwell on that. That's a feature of Mass Effect.
Certain people.
Sure. Even more
You're
so.
not a listener?
I skipped right past.
Oh, I said fans. I said the real fans.
Yeah, it's fans. Yeah.
So much dialogue.
Yeah.
Let me get to the fight. Do you want to get to some questions?
Tourists, they do whatever.
Yeah,
but the real fans.
That's
the real
exactly what it
fans,
is. Yeah. Do you want to get into questions?
Sure,
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. Who here's got some questions? Oh my God! Nobody shoot up their hands too far. Nice. I'm going to come down to you.
All right. So obviously, Mass Effect blew up to become this cultural phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
When did that kind of sit with you? In between Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, when the gears are really starting to go and the fan base is really starting to go crazy. You as Commander Shepard, what was that like for you?
Oh, I mean, I talked about earlier, one of the big moments was, here is the action figure of the character you played. That was a huge moment for me, because I collect action figures too, so it was yeah, I can put him next to Darth Vader. So that was huge. I think I was always pretty sure that it was going to be a good game, and quality often leads to success, not always. But BioWare had said from the outset that it was we are thinking of sequels for this, just so you know. But it really, I think, hit home the first time I was at a convention and somebody dressed as Commander Shepard walked past me in an immaculate suit of armor with lights, and it was that could be on screen. And yeah, that's when it really hit home. And of course, I just immediately ran after them I do that guy's voice, and got a picture with him and whatnot. And actually, we were friends subsequently. That person actually is Harrison Cricks from Vulpin Props, who he would hate to have this be his claim to fame, but he is the first guy who did, if you've ever seen stuff on Dragon Con, the Marriott carpet design that's sort of become ubiquitous in all. He was the first guy that did it, and it was with army guys camouflaged as the carpet. But that was a clever thing that he did that blew up. But he does amazing armor, props. He now has a thriving company, and I got to meet him when he was just a Mass Effect fan who'd made an awesome costume.
So did you? So what tipped you off while you were making it that you were this is a good game? Were you would you consider yourself a video gamer at that point?
Oh yeah, and especially RPGs. That's
Okay,
what
yeah.
that's the kind of games that I tended to play. It was, again, I'd been working with BioWare for years, so I knew
Right.
that the Baldur's Gate games were great. I knew that I'd enjoyed Knights of the Old Republic. So I was pretty sure it was going to be a good game right from the get-go. And,
Right.
As we're encountering scenes and things like that, there's always, just as you finish a scene, it's that was really good. I like
Sick,
that. I like
yeah.
the writing in that scene. So it was pretty much throughout the entire process. There wasn't one eureka moment where it's
You saw the logo and you're oh.
The ship is named Sovereign, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. So it's really interesting, like when like IP or whatever you want to call it, like hits that like level of like you're seeing the N7 logo everywhere.
Yes.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Like how like that threshold that things meet, all of a sudden happens, and you're just like, wow, this is everywhere, and people love it. So must be pretty prideful for you to be a part of.
It's gratifying to be a part of it, and in some ways humbling as well, because video games, even more than film, are such a collaborative
Right.
art form.
Yeah.
And even more than film, because everything you see has been forged out of ones and zeros by hardworking devs. So yeah.
Crunch time. Yeah.
Next question. We got a question. Yeah, hit it. You are first to sit down. Of course you have a question. I love it.
How did you begin to get into voice work originally?
As I say, my very first video game voice work was because of that one audition that I went to, and Baldur's Gate 2, and then led to everything else. Before that, I was just an actor, and when you're an actor, you do many sorts of gigs. You might be doing a play one day, followed by a commercial the next, followed by a sketch comedy show. So you basically take work that comes along, and so I had done a fair bit of radio stuff at that point for CBC. We did I don't know if anybody remembers a show called The Irrelevant Show that used to be on CBC Radio, so I'd done a fair bit of work for that, writing and performing. And so by the time I actually did my first video game voiceover work, yeah, I'd done commercial work and I'd done radio work, and I had just been a stage actor for, so your voice is your instrument in that case. So I know that, as you move further along in your career, you tend to specialize. But when you're starting out, I know, especially when you're getting just started out in your career, I know very few people that would just pigeonhole themselves and just go, I am only a voice actor, or I only do commercials. If you don't, especially if you don't have another job besides acting, you will take whatever acting job comes along because you've got to pay the rent. So, yeah.
I was actually going to allude to that. What was some things you're doing between the voice acting? Were you a waiter?
No, see, I am what they call a professional pretender, because I don't think I did have a waiting job like in 1991 for maybe less than 3 months. Wasn't enough to qualify for unemployment. I got fired before that. So it was my own fault. I kept showing up late. I was a decent enough waiter in that I could make jokes with my customers and get a good tip. But, I'm sure I fucked up orders. I screwed up orders. I'm sorry.
Holy guacamole.
Yeah, but it was mostly showing up late. So since that brief foray into the service industry, I have never had any job that isn't directly related to pretending. So,
are there people who are inspired to get into voice acting here? Is that kind of the deal? Yeah, nice. So maybe, yeah, the first steps, given modern technology that we've got access to, unlike the 90s where you actually had to go to
I
a
don't know,
recording
because I
studio.
started in the 90s and I
You
did
got
that
it.
one audition and I just kept getting hired. So my advice to you is go back to the 90s, get in on the ground floor with BioWare by going to
Perfect.
that one audition
Yeah.
in Edmonton,
Take his
which is
job.
useless advice. But thankfully, more recently, I've been able to have a good answer to that question, because my compatriot, Jennifer Hale, as mentioned, one of the most prolific voice actors in history, has started a thing called Skills Hub, and that is pretty much on, I know she posts about it on her socials all the time, so the best way to get information is follow Jennifer Hale on any of her socials, and you will see the posts for Skills Hub. I think it's just at Skills Hub. It might be Skills with a Z, I'm not sure, but just follow that, and she brings in so many fantastic instructors. I think Steve Bloom's done some stuff for her, many other voice actors, Carrie Walgreen. They do classes not only in straight up voice acting technique, but also on the nuts and bolts of it, like the business end of things, and promotion, and auditioning. And they have online classes. I think they might do some in-person stuff, like in Vancouver and whatnot. But for the most part, it is mostly online, and it's an invaluable resource. So if you are at all interested in voice acting, I would recommend Skills Hub.
Is there a step in, how do I say this, having an improv background?
Yes.
Is probably detrimental. Is absolutely awesome to get into. Like, I'm certainly going down a road where I'm investigating a lot more Walla or loop group voiceover work, and they really take in improv.
Oh yeah,
actors
because then
for
they
sure.
don't have to write you dialogue. You can just improvise.
Precisely, yeah. But I kind of feel like, and especially chatting with you over the past half hour in particular, it kind of makes you like personable, being able to like riff and be really, really comfortable with people a lot more,
Yeah.
and be a lot more professional a lot of the time. Do you feel like improv would be a road that maybe some voice actors should go down?
That is definitely something I would advise. And in fact, before Skills Hub came along, that was usually my pat answer was do improv. Sign up for improv classes. There's lots of improv groups all across the country. Get involved with one of them. Because the lessons that improv teaches you can be applied to nearly any branch of acting, but particularly voice acting. Because video games, especially, because you often are not getting a script until you get to the studio. Especially on big games, the secrecy, they don't want to be mailing out scripts anywhere. So sometimes you don't know what character you're playing until you walk in the door. When I did Gotham Knights, I thought I was playing an alien in some game. I did not know. I didn't know it was Gotham Knights until I was in the studio, and then they went,
Wow.
by the way, this is Gotham Knights. We knew you were playing an alien. I think he was codenamed Steve or something. And so I thought, is this a comedy game? An alien named Steve? Sure. And then I found out it was actually Starro the Conqueror, who was an actual established DC Comics Silver Age supervillain, which a giant starfish who I'd read many comics. I was thrilled to find it's like, oh, I'm playing an actual like DC supervillain in a Batman game, no less. So being able to just immediately drop into character and be in the moment and do effective cold reads, they don't make you just here's the first time you did it. Now we're putting that in the game. But being able to hit the ground running, which improv teaches you to do, it's invaluable.
Well, pivoting to a request of a director, like you said, tame down this emotion. Like you really want to be able to hone that, how to control your vocabulary, I take it, right?
Yes.
Next question. Maybe even about, oh, nice, over here. I don't need to prompt at all. We're great.
So as a voice actor, in terms of like working with the team from the game, what did you appreciate most in terms of like direction, scripting, characterization? Like what helped you the most as a voice actor in terms of feeling comfortable or having a good time when you were doing a role?
Well, with the Mass Effect games in particular, they're huge, sprawling games. And when you're playing Commander Shepard, as Jennifer and I did, you're in everything. And we in no way did it chronologically. It was always jumping around. So our directors were invaluable. I worked with Caroline Livingstone and Shauna Perry for the most part on the first games. Excuse me. And they were, as I say, invaluable in giving us context and letting us know where in the story this is happening, what has happened before, what is going to happen next. If we'd already recorded something, it's like, okay, so this comes just before that scene that we did like 2 weeks ago. Do you remember that? And if I didn't remember, they would refresh me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sort of thing. That's what really helped.
Was it particularly confusing in situations where like the choice before impacted the scene, so they had to like really give you quite a bit of context for like, this is the shepherd that did this, this, and this, therefore your direction is...
Yes, yeah, it would be things like that. Like, this is the renegade path for, getting into the later games. It's like, okay, so this is the guy that shows up if you killed Rex in the first game, you know. And which I would never do. I love Rex. But I did have to record the dialogue for that option of when you did kill Rex. And, same thing like with... you talked about being surprised by scenes. Like even long after I had the part, I was not getting briefed on like what we're going to be doing that week. I would come in and find out, and so I'm just like reading through the script, and it was just like, holy crap, Shepard kills Morden. It's like, well, they can. That might happen.
That might, It must be an interesting but challenging process to sort of wrap your head around those things and stuff like that. It'd be really fun.
Yeah, and again, I think being a gamer myself and being into RPGs and comics and that sort of thing, it helps wrap your head around it.
Next question here. Yeah. Yes.
now that Commander Shepard is among the tiers of like Master Chief and Nathan Drake, how do you feel your other roles get seen when you have such an iconic role always coming firsthand?
Well, I mean, that's sort of, ask Mark Hamill how he feels about Luke Skywalker. Of course, people. That's the And I remember being a kid, like seeing something that Mark Hamill was in. It's like, why doesn't he have a lightsaber? And so that's part and parcel of it. I'm just upset that Blasto does not get as much credit as he should. No, I'm just. Blasto is a lot of fun, and that's another thing where sometimes you just get surprised. Blasto was meant to be like an Easter egg gag, who now has like his own merch and toys, and I'm his voice. So in some ways, Blasto. I'm even more thrilled by Blasto's success than I am by Commander Shepard's, but Commander Shepard paid a fair bit of my mortgage, so I owe a debt to him. Yeah.
I like that taking ownership of the role, though. That's a great point, like, especially Mark Hamill. Like, especially in the later movies, he was like, "Well, I wouldn't go that direction." Like, he's very attached to that character.
Oh, sure,
right?
because I mean that by that point it was like I've been associated with this character for decades.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
So if you can feel that type of ownership over your character.
However, I wouldn't be able to say the same thing because it's like, Commander Shepard would never do that. It's like Commander Shepard he might just say destroy the planet, so.
You should say that, though, during a voice thing.
Yeah.
He would never do that. Rewrite. Let's
Yeah.
go. Yes. Next question? Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit of a sillier one, but of all the stores on the Citadel, which one actually was your favorite?
The one that gave me the biggest discount.
I do have to admit, that's when I disengaged from the game, was in the Citadel. I was like, that was me, and I'm part of the odd one out here, but I was like, oh, so much dialogue.
Complaining to a voice
So many
actor.
in-jokes.
When do I get
And
to
actually,
the
the
shooting?
Citadel DLC is definitely my favorite DLC.
I was
Yeah.
told to push through, but I do remember that. Yeah. Question? Yeah.
Hi. I guess just on that improv note as well, like D&D can be such a good resource for people who are looking to kind of break out of their shell and everything. And I was just wondering, like, do you have a favorite D&D story, module, homebrew that you've done in recent history, or like one of your all-time favorites that you go back to and play with people?
So this is something that I've run or something I've played?
Or anything. I'm kind of like looking to get back into it. I think a lot of people are always looking for inspiration and that. So yeah.
Well, let's see. So my favorite recent campaign that in fact, probably one of my favorite campaigns of all time, was one I got to play in called the Black Dice Society. And that was the official Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft stream that was done to promote the new Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. And B. Dave Walters was the dungeon master for that. And we had met, as mentioned, at D&D Live. And he knew I was a big Ravenloft fan. It's one of my favorite settings. So when he was contracted by Wizards to essentially put together an actual play to promote this, he asked me to be in it, and I was just like, oh, fantastic. And he also knew that one of my favorite D&D villains is Aslan Rex, who is the Lich. Strahd von Zarovich, most people associate Ravenloft with Strahd, but he's only one domain. He's Barovia. When I was a player growing up, Darkon and Aslan the Lich were sort of my favorite part of Ravenloft. So B. Dave said, yeah, Aslan's going to be part of it. We want you to play Aslan. And what I didn't realize is that he also wanted me to be a player character in the game. So I didn't even bother making up a character. It's like, great, I'll put together my Lich costume. This will be great. And a couple of weeks later, he was like, yeah, I looked at D&D Beyond, and you haven't created your character yet. And I was like, I thought I would just be using Lich stats. And he's like, oh, no, you're one of the PCs, too, as well as an NPC. So by that point, everybody had picked all the cool stuff from Van Richten's Guide, essentially. Like, one of the players was already being a Dhampir, one was already being a Lycanthrope, so we had a couple of Reborn. So I was sort of like, everything's picked. And also, I asked, like, so what do we need in the party? Because everybody's already selected their characters. Like, well, Cleric is really the only role we don't already have. And I was like, great. This is just like when I was in junior high. I have to play the Cleric. But it then occurred to me, okay, well, if we've got this party full of monsters, what if this guy's just like a human fraidy cat who's terrified by all his friends. And then, the old Ichabod Crane Headless Horseman cartoon immediately occurred to me, and so that idea, it's like, okay, essentially Ichabod Crane is a cleric, down to the tricorn hat, and so I had that look, the tricorn hat with like a mace and shield. And that character, Brother Uriah Macabre, ended up being one of my favorite characters that I ever played. He was a lot of fun. And the Black Dice Society, the whole, gosh, I think 60 episodes are all available on YouTube. We had some amazing guests as well. We had Todd Stashwick, who you may know from Picard. He actually, before he had that role, he played our Dr. Van Richten. And my character was literally, before I knew he was playing it, had established himself as he's a real Dr. Van Richten fanboy and, like does fan art for him and things like that. So I got to have great scenes with Todd. Had amazing scenes with Nora Ibrahim, who played another character in that. And yeah, it was just a great group. So all of those are available online. So that's from a player's perspective. From a DM's perspective, as mentioned, I do a lot of D&D in a castle. I'm one of their frequent DMs. And of the campaigns that I put together for that, one of my favorites is a Halloween campaign called Liar's Night at the Yawning Portal. For those that don't know, Liar's Night is the equivalent of Halloween in the Forgotten Realms. And I set it at the Yawning Portal Tavern, and it's a really, really fun campaign. Basically, the games that we do at D&D in a Castle are 3-day games, 8 hours of gaming per day, so a 24-hour campaign in total. And excuse me, I think I've run that probably about 6 or 8 times now, and it's different every time and a lot of fun. So yeah, those two. I'll pick those two. No worries.
Next question. Right there. Nice.
Hi.
Hello.
Back to the silly Mass Effect questions. All right,
Yes.
Team Hammerhead or Team Mako? Which is your favorite or least favorite vehicle?
Well, the Mako, I mean, there's so many jokes and memes about the Mako. So I think I'll pick the Mako because it was the hardest to drive, and there's some things that that you miss when you move on, like the Mako and the very long elevator rides. So yeah, those produce so many memes. People have gifted me like little Mako ornaments and things like that. So yeah, I'll pick the Mako.
Nice. Question? Yeah. You make me go all the way over to the other side. I'm getting my steps in. I burn off the bacon from this morning. Good God, you're right. Here you go.
Hey, Mark.
Hello.
I was curious, what's your process when you are creating a voice for a character, and is there a favorite voice you've created for a character?
Let's see. I mean, basically, the process, again, because you might not know, you don't really have a lot of time at home to come up with, what's this going to sound like, because you don't know what you're going to be doing. So essentially, you will throw out a few offers to your director, like, how about this? I could do it like this. How about this? And they might mull that for a while and let you know which one that you want, and then you'll work together to hone the performance in that way. In the Mass Effect games, I mean, the Vorcha for sure. I don't know if you know, but I play the Vorcha. I literally play all of the Vorcha, like every single Vorcha that you ever interact with is me. And that is because, as I say, I played a lot of aliens. I mean, the same is true for the Hanar. I play pretty much all of the Hanar, including the one that Shepard calls a big stupid jellyfish, so I'm calling myself a big stupid jellyfish. And Blasto, of course, when he came along. So the Vorcha, however, I basically did this voice. It's like, okay, it's like these guys look like monsters, so it's got to be like an extreme voice, I think. And I came up with this thing where I would fill my mouth halfway full with water and basically just like, and there would just be like water pouring down my chin as I'm doing these lines. And just to make it sound really wet and liquid and gross. And I was screeching, and I wasn't using any technique to maintain my vocal cords. I was just like screeching as loud as I could and really blowing out my voice. And they would always save the Vorcha till the end of the session, or the end of the week usually, and give me the weekend to recover. So I'd laid down. There was like one Vorcha in particular, and that particular week I did any dialogue that he had, and we were done. And the next week they said, okay, yeah, we liked what you did for the Vorcha, but we don't want to have to ask any other actor to do that, so why don't you just play all of them? And so then subsequently I was any Vorcha that were in the game.
A victim of your own success. Then.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any, I imagine video game voice work is a lot of work. Do you have any,
can be.
advice, tips to, maintain your
I mean,
voice?
it beats digging ditches.
Yeah.
It's not
But,
as hard as that.
We've talked to other voice actors in the past on these stages, and I seem to remember Brendan Hunter was he was the one potato chip trick.
So while you were talking, I was thinking about the potato chip thing. That's
he was
really
talking
funny.
about how drinking you would naturally think you should drink water while you're performing, but he was talking about taking a shot of olive oil and using
lubricates
putting
the voice.
one chip in his mouth was one of those things we thought that was so stupid, but it seemed logical at the time. Do you have any things like that you do, or preparations?
When I started out, I was using basically, again, I'd been in theater for a long time, so there's throat coat and various teas and things like that. There is if you are at all sick, there's a Chinese cough syrup called Neonjom, I think it's called.
Interesting. Okay.
Which my wife swears by. She's also an actor, and so sometimes I had used that. But it was Jennifer Hale, who actually told me, it's don't bother with the lemon or anything like that. That actually, that's an astringent. So just hot water. Just have
Hot water.
a thermos full of hot water in the booth with you. And, not boiling, piping hot, but certainly not room. You don't want cold water certainly under any circumstances. You want at least warm and preferably hot water. And another little trick is I hadn't actually heard of the potato chip one, but green apple.
It might be made up. He wasn't very sincere most of that time.
I think
Put
he
one,
was.
put one potato chip
He was
beneath
pretty
your.
he was pretty jokey.
Yeah. But this one is serious. A green apple. One thing that even if you're drinking water, you can get the sort of the that sound.
Yeah.
Green apple apparently takes care of that, and actually I know it does. I don't know, it's tartness or something like that. It just it gets rid of that completely. So you just have a small piece of green apple, you have that, wash it down, and then you're fine.
To get rid of the smack or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. I'm sure there's a great technical term for
I'm
that.
sure there's
but
scientific
yeah,
basis
yeah.
behind it, but yeah.
Green apple. I
Because regular apple won't work. It's got to be a green apple.
really like a Granny Smith.
Like a Granny Smith. Yeah.
Wow. See, I really like those really specific tips. I think that stuff is really interesting.
Mhm.
Like the green apple.
Yeah, and as I say, both of those came from Jennifer. So.
I think that applies to generally any industry, even as musicians. How do you take care of your body? How do you take? Because you ruin it on one gig, the rest of the next 6 months are going to be horrible,
Yep.
right? Speaking of that, as a matter of fact, it might be maybe I ask my question that I typically ask.
Sure.
A theme with Danny and I, we really love spotlighting failure. We're a big fan of that. 'Cause
Okay.
you can learn more through failure. So I ask this question with everybody generally. It's easy to put our heroes on a pedestal, but they seem more human when we see them fail. So can you talk a bit about maybe a situation that you failed and how you overcame it, and maybe something you're working on right now that you are failing at, and you're trying to overcome it?
I mean, it's been pretty good ride so far, so I don't know. Okay, well, I mean, obviously, I do improv comedy, and, not every joke is going to work. And in fact, one of the primary things that when you're starting out in improv, they do, don't be afraid to fail. The only way that you will learn is through failure. And in theater sports specifically, they have a thing called the horn. And usually that's given to one of the judges or the host, and they can basically honk that horn anytime that it's just this scene is boring, or this scene is pointless, or this scene is gratuitous. They can do whatever they can just honk that horn, and you were instructed never to take it personally. It's always just you know what? You should thank them. In fact, sometimes they actually make you go, thank you, and then thank the person who horned you, and then leave, because it's you know what? They weren't enjoying it, and that probably means the audience wasn't enjoying it either. So take that as a gift and move on.
that's a really good idea. Do we give the audience horns?
I like that. That's a good idea. Or like the.
Oh, no,
thumbs
no,
down.
not everybody in the audience has a horn.
Not
That's a
every-
recipe for chaos.
That's quite. That's amazing.
I think that's really interesting because like improv, you have to be okay with trying things, and that's
Yes.
such an important thing to like get over. You
Yeah.
know?
And you know what? It might not work. You know why? Because we're making it up.
It's all made up.
Cool.
Oh, you're good.
There we go.
So
Camera okay?
we're nearing the end.
Yeah.
Electronics be damned. What are you up to? What do you have looking forward to? Like what?
Oh, I've got many
what-
things to look forward to.
What really? I'm going to form this sentence more carefully. Like you've had a great career. You're doing
Thank
cool stuff. You're well known. People like you.
Sure.
What do you want to do? What's next for you?
I mean, I have never been a person who has like, I have my 5-year plan and this is going to,
Fair.
I'm a
You're
disorganized
an improv guy.
nerd who floats along. And my entire guiding principle has like, this sounds like fun.
Awesome.
And I'm very, very fortunate to be in a position where I can do that because you know, obviously, as mentioned, rent has to be paid and that sort of thing. But I usually, if something comes along and it sounds fun, that horror movie that I just did,
Right.
you know, Night Terror, I had a great time. I will say this, there was not much budget. and of course, everybody who was in it knew that. And so I didn't sort of go demand like, well, I want more money. It's like, no, this is how much money they have.
Right.
This is what they're offering. Does this sound fun, going into the woods for 2 weeks and shooting a horror movie? Yes, so I'm going to do it.
Hell yeah.
Again, that you know, like D&D in a castle, like D&D Live, all these things that come along. I follow my bliss. I go with like, what do I enjoy doing? I would like to do that. I will say yes, as improv teaches you to. Say yes to things, and then things open up.
What are you saying no to these days?
What have I said no to? I don't know if I have turned down anything recently.
I heard a great quote that's been resonating with me for, 3 weeks or so. I'm a yes guy. I say yes as a drummer. I sit in with lots of bands. I just say yes all the time because they seem like great opportunities. But somebody said recently that's rattled me is say no to good so you can say yes to great.
Oh.
And it's a hard one, right? Because I want to be involved in lots of cool things, and so
Sure.
do you. I don't know about you, but ADHD, I want to be involved even 20% of like everything. If cool things are happening, I want to be a part of it.
Sure.
So yeah, what's the challenge of saying no? Yeah.
I guess it's sort of like, as I say, I just have just follow my gut. It's like, that sounds like it might be lucrative but boring, so I'm not going to do it. This sounds like it might not make as much money, but it'll be a lot of fun, so I'll do that. And that's what's led to like a lot of great things for me. Like, I will say this, that you know, you do get paid to do D&D in a castle, but it's not like you're making bank. It's more of an honorarium. I do it because I get to go run a D&D campaign in a castle in the UK, and you know, when we're doing a couple in a row, it's like I get to live in a castle for 2 weeks. Yeah, so that's lots of fun.
Everybody around me knows I've got a Venn diagram where it's cool people, lots of money, and this little